Welcome to the J.Geiger Studios podcast, where we help you achieve your ideal outcome. We're here to provide value to you and your organization every step of the way. And I'm your host and guide in this journey, J.Geiger, and I'm happy you're here with us today. Today in the studio, we have Nick Delmedico. He's our Director of Talent Services, and he's really skilled at finding the best resources available. Nick, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to touch on first, like one of my key topics is, so you're a Browns fan. Tell me about that.
It's rough.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Defense is playing well this year, but yeah. Quarterback issues as always.
Is that a pretty common thing?
Quarterback. Yeah.
Wasn't there like 5 years ago, there was like the guy and Baker. Yeah. And he's playing down in Tampa now, right? Yep.
He's doing okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to draft the one.
Yeah. Well, somehow Green Bay's done it at least twice.
Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, we have to do it again. Actually, they didn't draft twice. They when Brett Favre came into the picture, that was some I think Ron Wolf and Mike. I forget his last name. I don't know. Is that bad of me?
Brett Favre.
Yeah, Favre. Yeah. Do you know, here's a piece of trivia. Do you know who Brett Favre completed his first pass to? Little NFL trivia.
I do not.
No? Yeah. It was to himself. He threw the pass. It was deflected and he caught it. Yeah. So, yeah, a little bit of wacky trivia.
Was that with the Falcons?
No. Yep. I think it was with the Falcons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, they didn't see that, they probably saw, the cowboy in them, and that wasn't for them.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that Ron Wolf saw that and was like, hey, we need to do that. So, in what I always like, I love the history of the Browns. They're like, what was it like as a fan to have the Browns like shut down and like become not a thing and get converted? Where did they go? Is it Baltimore?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
So they became the Ravens, right?
Yep.
And they made that brand switch right away, right? As soon as they moved the team.
Yeah. It was. I was still relatively young at the time. I think it was they came back in '99, but yeah, it was. Art Modell is not a loved person in Northeast Ohio.
So he took the team out.
He did.
Yeah, and they had this storied background,
Yep.
ground and pound, playing in the mud, kind of a football team. And then how do you resurrect that and bring that back? Like the Hall of Fame and the memorabilia and...
They left all the history and the brand stayed in Cleveland. That was part of the deal. And they just basically started a new franchise with the existing team.
Right. But then all the historical type stuff just kind of gets brought back up and put back on the shelves, even though it's not truly the same company or brand.
Sure.
It's basically resurrecting the brand.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are you glad of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely more of a traditionalist. I don't like to, even with what we have going on with the baseball team, I don't like the rebranding of it and all that. I get sentimental more so with things. I don't like rebranding.
No, I know. Yeah. Yeah. You're an old fashioned kind of dude.
I am.
Yeah. Like so, have you ever done any football recruiting?
Yeah, actually. So when I was at Miami, I worked for the
University of Miami. Is that something like if you say, I was at Miami?
I was not at the University of Miami. It was Miami University.
Oh, man. There's a difference?
There is a difference. Huh. University of Miami is in Florida.
Okay.
But Miami University is in Ohio.
Okay.
And it is much older. It was 1809.
Yeah, it's named after the Miami Indians, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So late in my freshman year, started working for the football team and worked in film, and then was also an assistant to the recruiting coordinator. So
wow,
got to watch some film.
So I'm finding out more and more about you that I just don't know, because we talked the other day about how you were actually thinking about going into football and into coaching.
Yeah. So my degree was in sport and health studies, and I had a double minor in business management and in coaching, which are actually quite similar.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And, both have a lot of leadership psychology focus. So, we got into that, and I really enjoyed it. But
then at some point there, you made the jump and you got into like actual recruiting, and you've recruited for a number of industries. I mean, technical industries. So how did you get into that, and what were some of those industries, and what was that like?
Sort of by chance, I was looking for something new, and the job posting was interesting, and went through the whole process. They called it the interview gauntlet, and it was about a 10-step process to get in there over 2 months.
That's intense.
It was very intense.
So what was the first job? Recruiting for what?
Aerospace. It was an aerospace industry. So my first placement was I took VP of quality out of Cessna airplanes, and placed that individual with Bombardier. So they manufacture private jets, mainly.
Yeah. And you were just right out of college, and that's what you did?
No.
Okay. So there was something in between there.
Oh, there were a few. Yeah. So I started out in insurance. More on the customer service side, so claims. Then went into financial advising.
Okay.
And learned the sales process.
Sure. And I imagine that really helped your people side.
It really, I was more of, I would say, an introvert in college and in high school. And those really help shape me and learn both sides of the business. The customer service is the back end of this. It's still sales, if you ask me.
It is. We're all selling. We're selling ourselves. Absolutely.
It's the back end of the sale. So, that really helped me, I would say.
Yeah. And so getting into these highly technical things. So you already had the people side of it figured out because of your experience in there. Then it was getting into like understanding the technology, I'm assuming, and the lingo of those industries. What other industries did you recruit for, or areas and skills?
Finance, accounting, and then more of a general space when I was at Superior. So we did anything from sales to engineering. So that was, that was interesting. It was a little tough to be all across the board and learn so many different industries, different lingo, all that kind of stuff. It's when I was in aerospace, I was very specialized. I was in aerospace quality. Mm-hmm. So it was anything from quality engineers, managers on up to VP.
Right. So you had to learn the lingo of like the quality standards and all that sort of thing.
AS 9100.
Is that what it was?
That's what it was at the time.
Huh.
It was Rev C was what it was at the time. It's been a long time. So they're probably on like H, or not H, but probably like Z.
Yep.
Old.
Yeah, you're that old.
Yeah, I'm
you're
old
like
now.
50 something, right?
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
You have the voice for it. That's what it is.
Well,
so
I've been told I have a face for radio. So.
Oh, okay. All right, right. So, do you what other industries then did you recruit for? You said like finance and all that. Which ones were your favorite?
Aerospace was definitely up there, and manufacturing. I enjoyed manufacturing. Sales, I enjoyed sales at first, but sales was a tough industry to recruit in.
Okay.
So
what made it tough?
Mainly the people that you're recruiting. You don't always get what you think you're going to get in sales, because their job is to sell themselves and sell. So
right.
Whereas in engineering, in IT, you get a little more of a genuine identity of what that person is. So
plus there's the like technical aspects of it and the certifications, and either someone knows how to program in C or they don't.
Yes, exactly. And the good part about sales is you have quantifiable accomplishments that they have on resumes. And so those are an easier selling point when you're talking to a hiring manager. But yeah, it was, I would say it was not my favorite.
Right. Interesting. Do you have any weird stories from your recruiting days? Anything strange that stands out that happened?
Lots. I've had people that have had to consult tarot cards before accepting positions. I had one individual who needed to talk to his mom, and he was in his 40s. So
interesting.
That one was interesting. He ended up not accepting, and his parents wanted him to work on the farm. He was an engineer, very successful engineer. So that one was interesting. But no, we've there's a lot. some that.
How about the where you get to the point where the customer's interested, they're interested, they've maybe talked, and then you never hear from them.
Oh yeah. I had when I was in aerospace, I had a quality manager who accepted a job at a helicopter manufacturing company. Won't say who it was, but accepted the job. He was supposed to start on a Monday, and he never showed up, and he never moved, accepted a different position, and just completely ghosted. So
I'm assuming that happens pretty frequently.
The lesson I learned is that I did not consult with his significant other, his wife.
Okay.
Which is one of the things that
you didn't consult.
I didn't, which is one of the things that we were taught to talk to people about, especially if there's a move involved, is get to know the candidate, and if you can, chat with the significant other, especially if a move is involved, because
I have never heard that.
You may hear one thing from the candidate, and then
I never heard that. That's
they don't
really
want to move
interesting.
away from family, and
wow,
and that's what it was.
Huh?
She didn't want to move away from family, and hey, I get that.
But there's so many new things I'm being exposed to here in this interview. I thought I knew it all.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Interesting.
We don't do a whole lot of relocations,
right? But
those can be.
You need to use
tough.
that tactic then. Yeah. So I have a question, kind of in the vein of like, do I know everything? Like I've got a certain perspective on this, but should you send a short bio about yourself, like a 1-pager synopsis, or a detailed resume?
So quite a few years ago, I think there was the idea that everything should be condensed into a 1-page resume. And I believe that was more so before we were sending resumes via email and things like that. And that,
you mean like when you're printing it on like
when you're
the specialty
printing it out
paper
and you have, you're quite an experienced individual and you have, 4 or 5 page.
Oh, I've
resume.
seen 15-page resumes.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of opinion based, but in my opinion, I want to see everything. I want to know, there's going to be some things that on the surface are not relevant, but, for instance, a candidate I interviewed yesterday had his volunteering on his resume.
Yep.
And one of the things about that was he started an organization, nonprofit, and it showed his values. So, that's
really applicable then,
well,
right?
It was, because one of the bullet points of the job order that we got was values.
Yeah, right.
So
you almost have to look at the job that you're applying for and like really like do it according to that. You have to, okay, I'm having this huge epiphany right now. I mean, maybe I knew this already, but okay. I'm assuming, number one, you need to have your resume say the most important things up front and then expand on that in more detail so that someone could take the resume, look at it and say, I want to know more, or I don't need to know more. And then they can read in more detail if they want to go beyond the initial page. Second, you need to look at every opportunity that you're applying for and then be willing to put the work in to tailor it for what the ask is. I mean, am I right on that?
Yeah, well,
because I would guess most people don't do that.
Ideally, you should have several versions of your resume. Especially if you're, full stack developer or something like that, where you have a lot of different areas where languages and things like that that you develop in, and sometimes it is hard to put everything in a resume.
Right.
So you go in after after you get the job description and you tailor it.
Right. So if someone, I could see that in a case where you have someone who's a developer and an analyst, so they could do coding and they could do business analyst type stuff or systems analyst type stuff. If they're applying for a systems analyst job, have one that's more focused on that. I could tell them that, oh yeah, I have all these skills too, but this is more of the focus since it's that. Whereas if they're more of a actual like if they're applying for a developer position, have one that's more technical focus. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And the other aspect of that is now we are using applicant tracking systems that can search for keywords. And if I go into the system or an employer goes into the system and they search for JD Edwards or Python or
Scrum Master or C# or finance. The person has it, not on the resume. Right.
Didn't happen.
Right.
That's a lot of hiring managers' views. So
you have to think of your resume as a search document that people are going to do keyword searches across everybody and include your resume.
Absolutely. And so sometimes that's where the sales comes in on my part, is I have to go in after the fact and say, well, he or she, they have this, and we'll send you a different version. We'll detail it more, which that doesn't happen too often, but from time to time it does. So
what are the absolute musts people need to have on their resumes?
Good question. What I like to see, especially in a technical resume, is I like to see specific skills. So keywords, what languages you've coded in, and
like systems you've worked on.
Exactly. Yep. And I think a good brief summary at the beginning is good to have.
That's a must.
Yeah, I would say so. It doesn't have to be a novel. Just a couple to a few sentences is perfectly fine. And then list all of your jobs. And sometimes if you have a large gap in employment, I think it's always good to put in there why. Sometimes it's because of job loss.
Like why you left?
Not necessarily.
Or why you're looking for the next thing?
Well, I've had several individuals who, took time off to take care of a sick parent, or spent time with kids at home, had a baby, those sorts of things. And there may have been a gap in employment as a result. So I like to see that, because I don't skip over those resumes usually. I like to talk to everyone.
Right. But customers might.
Customers will.
Yep. I totally could see that.
Some won't, but.
Right. So someone sees a 2-year gap in someone's resume, they might say, well, what happened there? So, and then I don't even want to go through the trouble of asking about that.
Exactly. And, what we're dealing with now, and I shouldn't say now, it's really been the last, 15, 20 years, however old LinkedIn is, and Indeed and in Monster is, in the past you'd have maybe 15 applicants for a job, something like that.
Now you're getting 150.
Now you have hundreds, sometimes, high hundreds.
Wow.
Just because it's so hyper visible now.
Right.
You can do a keyword search for Python developer jobs, and you'll come up with 50 of them, and
right.
and it's a one-click apply.
Right.
So
how does a person stand out then? That sounds like a lot of noise.
It is. And I think having a good resume helps you stand out in that it should be somewhat eye-catching. I don't think it needs to have a photo or multiple colors on it or anything like that. Just well formatted, definitely reviewed for spelling, grammar. That
and you probably should have someone else besides yourself look at it and like take their input.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that those are the important things about standing out is having your full skill set on there, because like I said, the applicant tracking system is going to weed out people who don't have certain keywords on it now, because these systems are so inundated
right.
with resumes.
So I assume now that, well, I mean, just from a values perspective, you don't lie about stuff and you shouldn't embellish. I would say that the market is such that there's so many opportunities out there that there's no need to like push the envelope on embellishing or anything like that. So just be straightforward and honest about it. Don't be so humble that you don't spell out what you're capable of, because we all know people aren't just a photo of what they are right now. Like they've got a whole future ahead of them and they've got capabilities, and you want to characterize what you've done in your past in this document that represents you in such a way that it shows what you're capable of as well. So I would say that's probably a must, right? Like don't embellish and don't lie.
Well, I probably shouldn't tell you what the acronym that we learned when I first got into recruiting was, but
is it appropriate?
It's TAL. They all lie.
Oh, okay.
To an extent, the majority will. Maybe lie is a strong word.
It's like they're like embellishing or maybe pushing the limits a little bit. But is that necessary these days?
Well, it's
to stand out.
Are you good at coding in Python? Sure. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I would have told you no, I'm not. But I could learn it.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. You'll get those people that will say that, and so that's where the recruiting becomes especially important in weeding those people out.
Right.
We have to really be able to weed out the individuals who aren't being as truthful,
right?
Or maybe have an inflated view of themselves. And
yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that one can be tough, and like that's why I didn't like sales.
Right.
Because everybody had an inflated view.
Having been in sales for a long time, I get it. You have to have a little bit of an ego to an extent. Like you have to have a lot of confidence because you get a lot of no's, and you have to be willing to handle rejection. But on the like technical skills front and all that, if you're not talking about someone who's just overconfident of their abilities, and you're talking about somebody who's embellishing, would you recommend to people who are doing their resumes to don't embellish, but be straightforward about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it'll catch up with you one way or another. And I'm not saying don't apply for
like jobs, stuff that stretches your abilities
that you're underqualified for. I think it was Bill Gates said that he never applied for a job that he was qualified for.
Right.
And that's really what keeps it interesting. I think that the national average for staying with an employer is under 2 years at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
It is.
We've had a really good track record here.
We have.
We barely have any turnover at all, but I think that's because of the nature of our business in consulting, that we're giving people new experiences and the opportunity for their roles to morph over time and, be able to switch from maybe even industry to industry.
I would say that's a part of it, but I think it's really our culture.
Okay.
And I'm biased maybe, but
yeah. I do like our culture.
I think it is compared to other places I've worked. It's I would say it's the culture.
I do think though that our culture, we still have things that we struggle with, just like every other company. Which one of them, I know it's just a minor thing, but is keeping our resumes up to date. What is a rule of thumb on that? Like we should be we're learning something every day. We shouldn't be updating them every day, but every 6 months, every 3 months. I mean, what's the rule of thumb there?
With the nature of consulting, you have an okay idea sometimes of, when the contract is going to end. Maybe it's a 3 month or 6 month or 12 month. And if it's if it's a 12-month contract, then you could probably get away with 8 months, 9 months, something like that.
But that doesn't take into account when you never know when, stuff's going to change and the customer wants to start their, here, I'm going to give you our notice. So in 30 days, we're going to, even though it's a, like a 6 month contract or something, we're going to give you 30 days because we're finding we're getting this done faster or whatever.
Yeah. I would say that you should probably, anytime you take a new position, you should update your resume right away with the base of what you believe the job is at that point.
And anytime you do something really cool, certainly do it then.
Oh yeah. I say what you believe because, as we all know, it evolves,
right? And
it sometimes doesn't turn out to be what you thought it was going to be, for better or for worse. But and having quantifiable accomplishments, I think is very important. Obviously, there's some positions where that's just not possible, but we had an individual that helped a client save I think X amount of millions a month by installing a new credit card related system. And
that needs to be on the resume. That sounds like something
that needs to be on the resume. It's a quantifiable accomplishment. And if I'm a hiring manager, I'm a employer, I want to see that.
Well, that sounds
everything else just looks like noise.
Yeah, and that sounds like something where when you're a humble person, you don't even really think about that, and you're like, well, I'm just doing my job. But when you do something really well and really impactful, you probably should, capture that.
You have to almost toe the line between confidence and cockiness.
Sure.
Not cockiness, but not too close to cockiness, but it's always good to be humble. And I always appreciate a humble person, but especially when it comes to interviewing, you need to be confident in your abilities. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that I currently don't lack. I think those around me would probably say that. But I can see it. I mean, there's been times when I've been less confident,
Of course. That's one of the main things that I preach when I'm preparing candidates for interviews is confidence.
Right. Like speak with confidence and authority, but that's something that you actually should practice. And I would assume too, that if you haven't applied for a job in a while, maybe you should, even if you're not really looking, or just kind of hone those skills.
Yeah, there's different trains of thought around that, but I don't think it's a bad thing to do. But yeah.
So I have a question. Do gimmicks work on, have you ever had people do something because we talked before about standing out and how do you stand out I had no idea that resume counts would come in the high hundreds for a position. I'm like, boy, how do you separate, the wheat from the chaff on that? I've also heard about people doing gimmicky things, like you mentioned before about putting pictures on a resume, or I can picture sending a gift basket, or like on Christmas Story. I don't know if you remember when he brought that giant gift basket and set it on his teacher's desk, hoping he'd get a better grade, something like that. So that's kind of a gimmicky thing. Do people do gimmicks, and do they work?
Not to the latter extent that you said, but with gift baskets and gift cards and things like that, almost more bribery. But people will have their pictures and things like that, and some people will have an interactive resume. I've seen those that you click on a link and it sends you to an interactive website resume.
That's kind of gimmicky.
It is gimmicky, and it's pretty neat, but
that's not a difference maker.
I don't. It depends. I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm going to go with who has the better experience on the actual resume. I'm going to review the resume just because they created a cool website.
Sure.
Doesn't mean I'm gonna
unless that's what they're applying for.
Correct. Correct. But as we know, there's so many things out there that can do them for you.
So, and I have to imagine too, talking about that is you have your, like you put forward your resume, however people can find you, like because nowadays they don't just know about you because of your resume. They can look on LinkedIn. Maybe they look on socials. If you don't have your things private, you'd have to make sure things are consistent. First of all, you wouldn't want anything bad shown on your socials and stuff that you're not willing for your potential employers to see. But you want your resume and LinkedIn to be almost mirror images of each other, right? So that's very consistent.
I would say pretty close. Sometimes LinkedIn doesn't have to be as detailed
sure.
as a resume,
but it should show your work history.
And the difference with LinkedIn compared to a resume is we learned, I believe that was a few months ago, I think, that the individuals who have a photo on their LinkedIn stand out so much more. They come across as more trustworthy, confident, and also you have a better idea that it's not a scam.
Right.
Or something like that, where we do see that from time to time.
I have a funny story about the trustworthy photo thing. We have been having a voice coach, or not voice coach. Why did I say voice coach? We've been having a body language coach come in, and people might think, what, a body language coach? And yes, because it's about all nonverbals, not just body language, but all nonverbals, like your tone of voice, your cadence, how you say things, what your appearance is, how you're standing, how you're conducting yourself on your web meetings, how you're writing stuff in the tone in your emails, what your signature block looks like. Everything that's not the actual words that you're saying or writing is nonverbals. And it says something about you and as to whether you're trustworthy or not. And so we did this exercise. I think me, Jordan, you did that too, right? Yeah, Jordan's nodding. And Justin, I think he did too. And Joy, did Joy do it as well? And anyway, just I'm not sure what order these are going to be released in, but we're going to be recording with Kristen Bach. We'll have her in our studio next week, and she is our body language coach. We'll be covering some really great topics around that. But she pointed us to this software that it's basically a web page where you upload your photo, and then people will rate you on various things like your trustability and things like that. And Jordan, how did yours come across? So? Yeah. And how about Justin? He ranked really high, and I'm thinking I'm gonna come out on top. I didn't rank very high.
I think Justin beat you.
He did.
If I remember.
He did. It was a little bit of a knock to my ego, frankly. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be as confident as I was, I am.
He brought it up, I think, several times. I think for the next Probably 4 or 5 team meetings.
Yeah. So anyway, but I guess you have to just prepare yourself for, try to have a bit of a thick skin on that, but put a photo on your LinkedIn profile and search that out. What's it called, Jordan? Photo Feeler. So go look up Photo Feeler online and upload a picture and see what kind of feedback you get. And you can also, use any search engine, Google or whatever, and look up what examples of good like representative photos. And
and to that point, I think some people feel like it's, they're going to judge me based on appearance and that sort of thing. And that's not what it's about at all. Unless you're applying for a modeling job, but it really is, to your point,
right,
about you're a real person,
right?
I can put a face with the resume, with
exactly,
the name. And that's what companies want ultimately, is they want someone who can join their team and join their culture,
and maybe not hide behind anonymity. Did I pronounce that right? Anonymousness. Man, it's like saying cinnamon. Ooh, I got it. How about that? Yeah, and I know one of the things that you do, and I think helps you really stand out, is you help your candidates prepare for interviews. So you're recruiting for a position, whether it's a permanent position somewhere or maybe for us, at our clients, to make sure that they are as ready as they possibly can be for it. What's that process like? What do you do? And what's best case, worst case on that?
Well, you asked me earlier if I had funny stories. So early on, we had an MIT graduate who did not listen and showed up to the interview with cargo shorts on, flip flops, and thought that his resume would speak for itself. And it did not, and he did not get that job. So
he was a little overconfident,
and that's where you toe the line, and that's going over the line. That's jumping over the line. But yeah, we go through everything from, even if it's an in-person, if it's a Teams interview, you look presentable. You overdress for the interview. I'm not saying wear a tuxedo.
So but how do you go about this though? Because it sounds like do you like meet with them and you just say, okay, listen, you're going to do this, and this, or is it like a series of things that you take them through?
Yeah, it's more of a series of things that I take them through, and I talk to everyone the same, whether they're entry level or they're in the C-suite. I usually just say, hey, I'm not talking down to you. I go through this with everyone. You need to wear, this.
Yeah, whatever it is for the job. So if someone's applying for a C-level job, they better wear a suit and tie.
Exactly. And
unless the company culture is one that they don't want that.
See, that's where
like if you had someone going into Ben & Jerry's, you'd say, don't wear a suit and tie. Or if they're going to apply for a C-level job at a surf company.
Those are, in my opinion, very far and few between, because it is the interview process. Which is different from showing up for your first day of work.
Right.
You're there to impress. That is your goal. So it's good to be a little bit overdressed. And like I said, I'm not saying go Step Brothers and wear the tuxedo. But
man. And don't bring your brother-in-law.
don't bring your brother-in-law. But,
oh man.
That's one aspect of it. What I always say is if it's a Teams interview, for instance, have a copy of your resume.
Right.
Always have a few copies of your resume, and then we go through a few specific questions that you want to ask. I always say probably 15.
Okay.
Have
like
15,
sample questions.
Well, have 15
yourself.
to 20. Yes, have 15 to 20 questions prepared, because inevitably the interviewer is probably going to answer 10 of them.
Right.
and you don't want to ask a question.
Oh no, I don't have any questions.
Well, you don't want to ask the
one
question
that they already
answered.
Yeah, and you don't want zero,
and you absolutely don't want to come in. No questions.
Right. The only thing I would say about that is that if you're good at communicating and good on your feet, is if they said, "Oh, well, do you have any questions for us?" I had a whole list of questions that that I wanted to make sure we covered, and we have covered them all. I'm really impressed. Thank you very much for the time today. I mean, you could do something like that, but you don't want to say. If they say, "Hey, do you have any more questions?" No.
Yeah, you could do that. Personally, I think it's better to have questions, and you bring a notepad with you, and you come up with questions. You can come up with questions on the fly.
Sure.
Always good to research the company before you go in there.
Know what they do.
Yeah, know what they do.
Don't accidentally find the wrong one.
Right. No, I've had that before where.
All right, tell me that story.
Well, just it's a little nondescript, but employer says, "So you know what we do, right?" No, I don't.
Oh, well, they didn't look.
Didn't spend any time on it.
Well, they're not going to get the
that's
job.
Your homework.
But have you ever had one where they looked up the wrong one and they go to the interview and they like, "Oh yeah, you guys, I'm really excited about what you do," and it turns out it's not even the same company.
Probably. I can't think of one.
I can imagine it. Probably be a good movie,
but I'm sure. Yeah. No, it's quite an interesting business to be in when the product that you quote unquote sell can walk and talk and think for itself.
Right.
So you can prepare a candidate,
but once you let them run
hours, but and everyone gets nervous and
Sure.
everyone misspeaks. So that kind of leads into the last question that I always tell a candidate to ask at the end of the interview. And it's something to the effect of, "Jeff, is there anything you heard from me today that would prevent me from moving forward in this hiring process? I'm really interested in this."
Right.
It sounds like it's right up my alley. And the reason I like that one is we're all human. We all misspeak, and we may have completely glossed over the fact that we can, in fact, or that we have touched on J.D. Edwards Orchestrator. It may have been for a small 3-month project, but yeah, we've done that before, and that's a part of the job. And
right.
And so it gives you that opportunity to come back and say, "Yeah, actually, I misspoke there.
Right.
I can do that," and you give examples and all that kind of stuff. So.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I think I've gotten a couple things. One is we need to be proactive. We need to keep pushing everybody, make sure to keep their resumes up to date for sure. But I think we could do a better job of making sure people are prepared for those conversations when they're going to meet with the customer. And maybe what we do is we start to equip our team, and maybe in our weekly team meeting, do some training and some suggestions, a little bit bite-sized suggestions. I don't know what you think about that. Do you think it'd be helpful?
Yeah, and we've got a training folder not a training, it's a recruiting folder that's in our system. We have a lot of sample questions. There's some weird interview questions that have been asked.
Well, one I like to use, and feel free, people who are listening, feel free to use this. I feel like, especially when you're talking technology, and it's really telling when you're interviewing someone who's a technologist, is how do you apply technology outside of work in your day-to-day life? Do you do stuff outside of work?
That's one of my favorites. And I learned that from you. That is one of my favorites, and it shows their passion for it.
Right. Like what we've found, that when we ask that question, they're like, no, not really. That they really don't. They don't really dig technology. And we've asked other people, like, "Oh yeah, I wrote some levels for some video games. I wrote a program that kind of predicts the this, that, and the other thing, and helped me be better at playing those games." And I've had people tell me that they use it for like their project management skills for doing projects around the home, stuff like that. If they say no, that's no, I wouldn't say a red flag, but it's like, it just tells you that maybe they're just not, they don't internalize it and they're not super passionate about it.
Well, especially in consulting, those are the people that go the extra mile, and they will spend their free time getting their licenses and things like that, and making themselves more of a Swiss Army knife,
right? Which
is really what you need to be successful, I think. In
so consulting. I'm picturing a Swiss Army knife. You have to be flexible, and you have to have some tools in your.
You got to have a lot of tools. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, and to an extent, you can be really, really good at one thing, and you can be fairly successful until the technology changes.
That's right.
Becomes obsolete.
I had that exact conversation with a candidate yesterday. He was concerned about being, everybody always kind of denigrates being a jack of all trades and master of none. And I'm not so sure that's a bad thing. And I think everybody's got certain things that they are able to get mastery in, and it doesn't have to just be one thing.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree, because, you get on a project and you never know what roadblocks are going to show up. And
exactly.
Hey, if you're the one person on the team that, I've seen this before, and they don't have to bring in a separate consultant to do a 3-day fix.
Right. They're coming to you for the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're important.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Nick, really appreciate you joining us today. It was pretty enlightening conversation, and I learned some things about you, and I learned some things about recruiting, and I guess I maybe dispelled a couple of my preconceived notions.
I'm an onion. I have many layers.
You do? Is that what it is? You're like Shrek? Shrek had multiple layers? Yeah. Well, we're glad that you're able to join us today. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more exciting content. Make sure to reach out to us through our website if there's a topic you'd like us to discuss. Thank you for joining us for this conversation as you chart your course to your next destination. May your journey be filled with purpose and confidence. Until then, stay true to your compass.